Family trips would be more enjoyable without me, or so my mother-in-law seems to think. From the window of the speeding car, she looked at me with a mocking smile. This story begins on the first day of a family vacation with my husband's family. On the way to a luxury hotel, we stopped at a gas station. Then, suddenly, I was left behind, completely alone. I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. That moment is unforgettable. My name is Susan, and I'm 30 years old. I focus on housework and don't have a job outside the home. My husband, Thomas, works as a management consultant and is often away. Since I spend a lot of time alone, and Thomas has been paying all of my mother-in-law's living expenses since my father-in-law passed away, we decided to live with her. She was thrilled that her only son was moving back in, but she wasn't happy about me, his wife, coming too. I'm not glamorous or interested in designer brands. I do many household chores, so my hands are often rough, and I wear practical clothes that are easy to move in. To my mother-in-law, I was an embarrassing daughter-in-law she didn't want others to see. My mother-in-law, Linda, is obsessed with appearances and luxury brands. She spent all her inheritance and savings, but refuses to change her extravagant lifestyle. She constantly begs Thomas for more money, but he firmly says, "I'm giving you living expenses, not money for luxuries." Still, she never gives up and often causes problems. To make things worse, my sister-in-law, Jessica, lives nearby with her husband. Jessica has the same attitude as her mother and often makes hurtful remarks, like, "Thomas could do better than a plain woman like you." She comes to our house every day, demanding meals, baths, and drinks, but never offers to help or contribute money. "You're Thomas's wife, so it's your job to handle all the housework," she says. "You're not even good looking, so at least keep the house clean." She even tells Thomas that I don't understand luxury because I've always been poor. Yet, my mother-in-law claims to my husband that she does all the housework herself, and Jessica pretends we're good friends. I used to work in customer service, so I've been using those skills to avoid major conflicts with my mother-in-law and Jessica, but it's been a tough few years. My husband noticed everything, from me doing all the housework to my sister-in-law's awful behavior. However, he didn't confront them directly because I asked him not to. I wanted to avoid completely breaking ties with his family, no matter how badly they treated me. He respected my feelings, but often said, "You don't have to push yourself so hard. I'm okay with cutting ties and living separately." "Thank you," I'd reply, "but I want to try a little harder." I was even thinking of planning a family trip to improve our relationship. "What do you think?" "That sounds good," he said. "I can take time off next month, so let's do this year's trip." My husband and I have always enjoyed traveling together, even before we got married. Occasionally, we'd still take trips as a couple after moving in with my mother-in-law. But once my mother-in-law and sister-in-law found out we were staying at luxury hotels, they began insisting on coming along. "You two are so selfish. How can you go on luxurious trips without us?" they'd complain. "From now on, include us, and make sure it's extravagant." Because they wouldn't stop pestering us, I eventually told my husband we'd plan a trip for everyone. We booked a luxury hotel for the entire family, including my sister-in-law's husband. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were thrilled about the idea. However, just before the trip, my husband's work schedule changed, and he couldn't join us. I considered postponing, but my mother-in-law had already bragged to the neighbors about bringing back fancy souvenirs. She insisted we couldn't cancel, and I reluctantly agreed to go without him. On the day of the trip, I packed all their luggage into the car's trunk. Since there was no space left, I had to keep my own travel bag inside the car. During the drive, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law sat in the back seat, making snide comments the entire time. I was already feeling fed up. As I drove, I glanced at the empty passenger seat where only my travel bag sat. Without my husband there, I started to feel uneasy. Even as I drove onto the highway, my mother-in-law's complaints didn't stop. "You're driving so slowly. Are you this careless because Thomas isn't here?" she snapped. "There was an accident today, so I'm being careful," I explained. "You're just good at making excuses," she retorted. "You probably deceived Thomas the same way." "I didn't deceive anyone," I replied, holding back frustration. "If only Slow Susan weren't here, this trip would be more fun, right, Mom?" my sister-in-law added. "Yes, indeed," my mother-in-law agreed. Eventually, as we approached a gas station, my sister-in-law suggested, "Why not let Thomas drive the rest of the way? You must be tired, Susan." Having prepared their luggage and cleaned the house before our early departure, I was completely exhausted. Reluctantly, I agreed. Susan, could you buy drinks for everyone? My sister-in-law asked as I stepped out of the car. Strangely, my mother-in-law gave me a friendly smile, so different from her usual behavior. Sure, that's fine, I said, surprised by their sudden kindness. Maybe they want to improve our relationship, just like I do, I thought, feeling a bit relieved. But as I was about to walk away from the car, the engine roared to life. To my shock, my mother-in-law threw my luggage out of the car and yelled with a big smile, "Family trips are more enjoyable without the daughter-in-law. You're just in the way." I froze in disbelief as they drove off, leaving me and my travel bag behind. For a moment, I stood completely still, unable to process what had just happened. Her cruel words echoed in my mind. Finally, I realized no matter how much I tried to please my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, it was all for nothing. Feeling overwhelmed, I grabbed my travel bag, my vision blurred, and I could feel tears welling up. Startled, I ran to the restroom, covered my face with a hand towel, and broke down, crying uncontrollably. I don't remember how long I stayed there, crying, but eventually, I noticed a call on my phone. There was also a message from my husband. He had finished work early and was checking on how the trip with his mother and the others was going. As I read his message, my phone rang. It was Thomas. "Thomas, I'm alone at a highway gas station right now," I said, my voice trembling. What happened?" he asked, alarmed. "Thomas, I'm alone at a highway gas station right now," I said, my voice trembling. What happened?" he asked, alarmed. Hearing his concern, I couldn't hold back my tears and started crying again. He patiently listened as I explained everything without rushing me. "I'm really sorry that Mom and the others did this to you," he said softly. "I'll come pick you up right away. I'm so sorry this happened." "Why are you apologizing, Thomas?" I asked, my voice still shaky. "I just wanted to get along with your family, but I couldn't." He paused and then said, "I want you to tell me how you really feel. Do you still want to try and make things work with Mom and the others?" Right then, I realized the truth. "It's too difficult. I can't do it anymore," I admitted. "I see," he said. "I'm sorry for what my family did to you. I'll handle the separation and everything else with them. But are you okay with leaving things as they are? Your feelings, I mean?" "My feelings?" I asked, confused. "Yes, you've been holding back for my sake all this time, haven't you?" Thinking back, I realized he was right. I had been suppressing my anger and frustration toward his unreasonable mother and insensitive sister. Finally, I admitted, "Yes, I have, but I can't stand them anymore. I hate being around them." Saying that out loud felt unexpectedly liberating. I had been carrying that weight for so long. Thomas responded firmly, "You can do whatever you want from now on, Susan. I'll take care of everything else. No matter what happens, I won't let them hurt you again." His words gave me a sense of relief, and I made a resolution. I wouldn't tolerate their treatment of me anymore. A few hours later, Thomas arrived at the gas station to pick me up. Just being with him made me smile naturally. I realized how peaceful and happy I felt with him. Even though we were traveling the same distance as before, it was clear that we didn't need anyone else to enjoy our lives together. I couldn't help but grin a little, even though I felt bad for worrying my husband. Thanks to his thoughtful care, I was able to rest well after we got home. The next day, Thomas made a surprising suggestion. "I've narrowed down the options for our new home to places near Susan's parents' house," he said. "What? Why all of a sudden?" I asked, startled. "I want to make sure we're not bothered by Mom and the others anymore. Let's finish moving during the 3 days they're on their trip. Will it be too difficult for you, Susan?" Thomas, who is usually so careful and planned, was suddenly acting decisively. I could tell he was deeply upset, though he kept a gentle smile for me. "I'm all for moving. Let's get started right away," I agreed. Without wasting time, we quickly found a new home and a moving company. Everything went smoothly, and we moved out before the family returned from their trip. During this time, I received several smug emails from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. "We're having the best trip without you," one read. "The hotel is luxurious and amazing. Make sure it's at this level next time. Dinner was extravagant and delicious. It's even more fun without Susan's ugly face around. Traveling with just the family is so much more relaxing. The jacuzzi is incredible." Their excitement and gloating were obvious, but I just thought, enjoy it while you can. I was looking forward to what would happen next. As expected, at around 10 a.m., On their checkout day, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Susan, what's going on?" she demanded. "What do you mean?" I replied calmly. "They're saying the accommodation fee is $100,000. If you're not here, the price is completely different from what you told us," she shouted, panic in her voice. "It's only natural that the regular accommodation fee applies," I explained to my mother-in-law. "Since I'm not there, the special discount doesn't apply." "What are you talking about?" she demanded. "That hotel is run by my relatives. That's why we were able to stay at a discounted rate," I replied calmly. "What? We didn't know that," she exclaimed. "Well, all the hotels we've stayed at on our trips were run by my relatives, which is why we always got a special rate. Thomas told me to keep it quiet because if Linda and the others found out, you'd demand to stay for free." "What? Anyway, we can't pay $100,000. You have to do something. We're family, right?" she begged. "You said I wasn't family, remember? You enjoyed yourselves as a family, so please pay as a family. Goodbye," I said firmly and hung up. Ignoring her continued yelling, I felt a sense of relief. In the end, my mother-in-law and the others had to borrow money from shady sources to pay the hotel bill. When they returned, they discovered we had moved, and they couldn't get any more living expenses from us. This caused huge fights between them and my sister-in-law's family, eventually leading to her divorce. With no husband or income, my sister-in-law tried finding work in nightlife but struggled because of her bad reputation and personality. My mother-in-law, abandoned by everyone, even showed up at my husband's office, begging for help. She looked older than her age, her eyes hollow, her face haggard, and her clothes dirty. Crying in the company lobby, she pleaded to live with us. But my husband firmly refused. "We're cutting ties," he declared. Left with no options, my mother-in-law ended up doing hard, low-paying jobs just to survive. Years have passed since then. My husband and I now have a lovely child and live a happy, peaceful life. We are even planning to stay at the luxury hotel we couldn't visit before, just the three of us as a family. The hotel owner's relative invited us, wanting to meet our child. We're really looking forward to it.